Welcome, YouTube friends and family, to an outdoor edition of the Wellness Homesteader. So first, I hope you'll excuse the way I look. This is a work outside day, and the chickens are hanging out and they're talking a lot. So I just started a little campfire here, and I have some things I want to talk to you about today that have to do with gardening. It's supposed to be 71 degrees, so my hope is to get some cleanup done in the garden. So it's way too early to plant. Today is March 4th. My first frost day, depending on the source, is not, or last frost day, pardon me. Girlies, my mom's talking. Is not until the first week in May. So let me see if I can show you here what I got going on. So I'm burning some yard waste, and let me grab a couple small logs, see if we can get this party started. I don't know, it may be a little wet, but we're gonna give it a shot. Doesn't need to burn all day, but whew, it's a little bit chilly out this morning. So since I'm out here and my little garden pit has a cover, so I don't have to really worry about catching anything on fire, or the girls, they know hot. I mean, they're not gonna get burnt either. But I want to talk to you about something that's been heavily in the news among the homesteading community and what implications it might have for you. Now, y'all know I'm not an alarmist, but this is kind of concerning, so I hope you'll stay tuned. See, hello airplane flying low. We're gonna see if my fire building skills are still good. I usually don't have any problem, but the wood's a little bit wet because I didn't have it covered with the tarp, so it might be. Could there be any more noise? And if y'all see that I'm bleeding, it's fine. Cut myself already, so bye-bye fingernails. That's one thing. The rings and the fingernails have to go for garden season, because I'm always afraid someone will look at my nails and think, not that, wow, she must work hard in her garden. They might think it's something other than dirt, if you know what I mean. Well, come on over here, Jolene. She's like, I want you to hold me, my mom. They're so funny. All right, guys, so let me just share a product with you before we get into the Amos Miller story. So I purchased this Zippo Lighter years ago, and it is a butane lighter, and it is refillable, and you can get cans of Zippo Lighter fluid, butane, and you simply, it's got a little nozzle, and you simply stick it in the end, refill it. This has been one of the best things ever. I haven't had any problem with it failing. As you know, a Bic will often fail, and it also allows you to stay a bigger distance away from whatever you're trying to light. Please go. Smells really good. I'm gonna smell like a campfire today, won't I? So let me tell you a little bit about the Amos Miller story, how I learned about it, and what implications it could have for you and I, perhaps down the road. So Amos Miller is an Amish feller that lives in, I believe, Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And he has for many years had a business selling raw milk and dairy products made from raw milk. He has maintained, his position is, he is not under government regulation because he does not sell to the general public. He only sells to those in his association. That may not be the word he uses, but I think that's right. So in other words, it's a private club and they're making their own informed choice, and his products are safe. While I was watching Off-Grid with Doug and Stacy, I do love their channel. Do I agree with everything they say? No, I'm sure they don't agree with everything I say, right? But they've been following this very closely. Now, what I will encourage you to do is go out and do your own research. Some of the things that Doug and Stacy were saying is not what you read when you look online. Looking for my phone, I'm filming with it. From Doug and Stacy's point of view, from his attorney's point of view, it's a safe product. There were 2 cases of listeriosis, which is a contamination, a bacteria that can be found in dairy products from perhaps improper sanitation. Let's just say that. I'm not accusing Amos Miller of anything. But a person in New York and a person in Michigan both developed listeriosis, one of which died, and that listeriosis was related to the strain of listeriosis they found in some of his products. That sounds like a lot of mumbo jumbo to me. I do not personally drink raw dairy for a number of reasons. One, I don't have access to it. Do I believe it's safe? Guys, I have drank straight from like a cow and drank it growing up here, so yeah, it's okay. But when you're mass producing, shipping, etc., there is more chance for, let's say, contamination just due to the size of the industry, for lack of a better word. He's also been in trouble for his labeling, and he says, I don't have to go by USDA guidelines because I'm not selling to the general public, I'm selling to my association. The net was the courts ruled in favor of the prosecution, so this is going to go to the Supreme Court. Well, why am I worried about a raw dairy farmer that's in the next state over that I don't purchase from anyway? You'll pick up your device, Google current food recalls, and watch Google populate thousands. I'm not kidding. Whole Foods just had a big one. There was another new one this morning. So is our food supply as a whole safe? Well, I think what I produce is safer than what is industrial produced. Maybe that's a way to say it. And if that weren't true, we wouldn't have all the recalls, right? Another thing that Amos would not do is he wouldn't comply with inspections because he said he wasn't under that government regulation. What implications does it have for me? I'm sorry, I'm talking in a big circle. What if we didn't have the option to make those informed choices? I know there are a lot of YouTubers that I watch that drink raw dairy. Maybe they're purchasing it from a local farmer, but they have that choice. I also can purchase raw goat's milk for my bath and body products. Now, it's a little different because you're not ingesting it, so the implications are not the same. But what if I couldn't do that anymore? What if everything had to be ultra processed, homogenized, pasteurized, baptized, all of those things? I think sometimes the government is overstepping for those folks who want to make an informed choice. So when I was planning my garden, this is all to say, when I was planning my garden, I was like, I'm going to take it easy this year. I'm going to have pretty flowers. I'm not going to worry as much about preserving food. Well, let me tell you all, I went through a sizable amount of my home canned product, which is what it's there for, during the pantry challenge, and I'm still going through a lot. When I run the dishwasher, I do run my jars through the dishwasher every week or every few days, however often I do it. I'm amazed at how much I'm going through and how much I'm actually out of. So the garden plan I showed you is still a plan. What I'm going to tell you is I am going to try to maximize my garden space so that I do produce food in case certain opportunities to purchase food go away. So I'm talking about farmers markets, local farmers, pay for orchard, those type things. What if those become so tightly regulated, it's no longer profitable for those small companies to be in compliance? One of the things, and I'll just say a local farmers market sells, is the raw pressed apple cider, and it isn't pasteurized or homogenized, and trust me, it isn't regulated. And what if we can't get that anymore? So I think learning, and I'm not trying to scare anyone, I'm just saying this is a big win for the government in controlling our food supply. Control the food, control the people. And guys, you've never heard me talk like this. I'm not trying to be an alarmist. I'm really not. Do I think that it could come to fruition in my lifetime? I do. I'll have to have my son send me the article, because did you know that most of our food, I hope the cops don't think I'm sending up smoke signals, most of our food is produced by 3 main companies in the United States. And I can't call what they are, but you know, small companies will merge and then that gets bought up. So it wouldn't be hard for our food supply to be fairly controlled, simply because there's 3 main players in the game. Guys, I'm gonna stir my fire, and then we're gonna come back. I did get my garden bed topped off. I am going to give you 5 key principles for having a successful raised bed garden in 2024. And we're also gonna take a look at sorry, y'all, this chair's hard to get out of. Some of the storm damage. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. So if you'll stay tuned. Try this angle for a little bit. The Adirondack chair, so relaxing. I'd love to have a wooden one, but all of the weather here at my little place comes from this direction. So that way's west. It just beats everything to death so quickly. So I went for plastic, and go away, fly. It's held up very well. So let's talk a little bit about my tips for successful raised bed gardening. I have done in-ground gardening and raised bed. Why do I like raised bed? For me, it is a lot easier for me to control the weeds, for me to control the pests, and not have to worry about tilling the ground, because that is super hard on your back if you didn't know that. So I actually started my garden with 3 4x4 beds and lots of pots. I quickly realized the pots dried out quickly, would travel. It was tough unless the neighbor was willing to water. So I added 3 more beds, 3 more 4x4 beds. And I did that for a couple years. Then one year I added 2 4x8 beds. Last year I added 2 4x8 beds. And at the end of the season, so I haven't planted yet, I added a 4x16 bed. So this brings all of my growing to the veggie pot on the deck, my green stalk, and some pots. But it puts my food in one place that is protected from the chickens, because as y'all remember, if you've been around a while, they love to pick and eat their own tomatoes. And so I had the fence put in last year too. So my garden is not like, oh my gosh, it's lovely. It's everything I ever really wanted. I have room to expand should I decide. I could do at least one more 4x16 bed. But I think for my grow needs this year, I'm gonna start with what I have and not expand. So when you think about growing a vegetable or a fruit, there are 3 things that you need to think about. First of all, what does a plant need to grow? Well, it needs sunlight, varying degrees depending on the plant. It needs water, varying degrees depending on the plant. Some like to be dry, some have to be soaked. And then it needs nutrition. So when you break it down and it's only those 3 things, it's so easy, right? I am not a highly technical gardener, and I always have a good garden. Very rarely do I have epic fails. I have had, but I haven't had a whole garden fail. So let's talk first about sunlight. So my garden is situated directly north-south, and I only have one bed that would be considered east-west, but it is on the north side of the house. So when the sun comes over, I don't have problems with plants shading other plants. So that is one reason that I'm kind of moving trellises around, etc. Hello, ladies. Yeah, hello. We're gonna come a little closer. That's hot. They'll burn the chicken babies. Guys, they're all like right there, right there. They're like, what are you talking to us, Mom? So if you're new to gardening, figure out the lay of your house, watch the sunlight patterns. You know, it can depend on trees or buildings or how it's shaded, so that you know, like peppers and tomatoes, they need lots of sun, guys. You know where the best place would be to put those. And if you're unsure about how much sunlight need is on a certain plant, it's on a seed pack. Google it. Go to Google University for sure. So it is highly recommended that you do north-south rows. So even though I have an east-west bed, I can still plant north-south rows and be mindful of not shading things. So I feel like I have the perfect layout. If I were to add another bed on the south side, I would want to do very low plants that didn't require, you be careful, Jolene, that didn't require a lot of sunlight, because that area doesn't get full sun until about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So that's what you want to watch. Take a string, lay it out in your yard, take sticks and mark it out of where you're thinking of putting your bed, and that will really give you a lot of ideas. Guys, I have to go get a chicken.
You want to say hi to the people? Yes, hello. Hi, baby. I'm wearing
Miss Violet earrings today.
Yes, you stay off the deck because you poop.
Okay. I need to clip wings again. One gets on the deck, they all get on the deck. Okay, so that's tip 1. Know your sunlight patterns and your plant needs. Number 2, and you know, I'm just gonna tell you right up front, not been good about this. Your plants are gonna need nutrition. Well, you can amend beds, in other words, fertilize beds. You can liquid fertilize, you can granular fertilize, you can compost, you can do all those things. But you need to know about your soil. This is something that I have resisted, and we hear you. I am going to be soil testing this year. I had such a beautiful garden last year. You may be wondering, like, well, why are you going to do it? Because I want to see if I can have an even more beautiful garden this year. I really want to see if I can make the most of my time, my energy, my money, my water resources, all of those things. So you can buy all sorts of soil testing kits. Now, because I have 6, 8, 10, 11, I have 11 beds, the true way to do this would be to buy 11 kits. Okay, a kit is $30. That's not happening. So what am I going to do? Because the soil in my beds all came from the same place, and the compost top-off that we're gonna look at all came from the same place, I'm gonna assume that my beds are similar. So I'm gonna test my new 16-foot bed and see what that comes out as. You know, what am I lacking? you can do a pH meter. I happen to have one of those, and we'll be doing this later in the season, guys. It's way too early for all of this amending, etc., in my opinion. So knowing what kind of soil you have, I did not realize this, learned something new. Tomatoes deplete calcium in beds. So my tomato bed, I've rotated every year, but I definitely will rotate it this year. And I need to just make sure that I don't put something that's a high calcium drainer back in that bed. So I will say, test your soil, amend your soil, manure, compost. And that's what my beds were topped off with, is the most beautiful compost. It may not look beautiful to you, but guys, let me tell you, it grows beautiful, beautiful vegetables. And yeah, so test, amend, and compost, and then continue to feed. So I think one of the reasons I was more successful last year is because I fed it more. It just seemed like everything was growing so quickly, I knew it needed more nutrition. All right, tip number 3. Guys, I hope this is hearable. Now what do you want? Marigold's like, you didn't hold me and tell me I was pretty. You've all seen my little drawings of what's in what bed what year. You want to track that, guys. It doesn't have to be fancy. You've seen mine, and I'm no artiste. Just keep a record. So what can happen is plants that develop disease can contaminate, it's hot, girl, the soil. And then if you keep planting that same plant, you are just propagating that disease. So rotating, tracking and rotating. Violet, marigold. Sometimes I run through all the chickens' names, all the cat names that I've ever owned before I get to my own son's name. Okay, sorry about that, Ben. You want to prevent soil depletion. Now, maybe I should test my tomato bed. My hesitation on that is that may show something totally different and may only affect one bed. I want to test a bed that I think most represents all of my beds together. Okay, number 4. Guys, I know it hurts the pocket. Plan to water. I watered my garden with rare exception on the daily unless we'd had a significant rain. Oh, they're warming up by the fire. I have a rain barrel. It's only 50 gallons. That's only 10 5-gallon buckets. For me, that wasn't nearly enough. I had to resort to using city water. I was very concerned, guys. Now, everybody's water prices are different. Actually watering on the daily heavily only raised my water bill on the average of $5 to $7 a month. Well worth it, considering that could be the cost of one vegetable plant that's well established at a nursery. So don't neglect water. Don't put all your hard work in and then neglect to water it. And then my 5th tip is add flowers. Now, if you remember from my very first garden tour, I said all the center is going to be flowers and herbs, but I've rethought that because, for example, marigolds are great pest deterrents, not the chicken, the flower. So putting them in between some plants can really help keep away certain pests. Because I garden organically and I use neem oil or soapy water, there's various things. We definitely have squash bugs here, guys, so no slugs, but squash bugs. I think it is super important to use what nature gave us to help keep down the pests in the garden. Now, another one is borage. Borage is so pretty. It comes up with this delicate little purple flower, and they say, I don't know who they is, the garden experts say, planting borage with your tomatoes produces the sweetest, best tomatoes you will ever have. So I did that year before last. Oh my word, for me, borage was so invasive, it was choking out my tomatoes. So that solution didn't work very well for me. So I'm gonna try some marigolds this year. Marigolds are pretty easy to start. My Arrow garden is kind of full right now of things that I'm trying to sprout. I'm seeing a couple little white things poking out of seeds, but it takes a while, y'all. It's hydroponic, number 1, and it's artificial grow lights, number 2. And my house is a little chilly, number 3, but it's coming. And I always get discouraged at first and think, well, nothing's gonna grow, but it will. You just have to be patient. So another thing you want to put in your garden, if y'all remember last year, smoke, no matter where you move, comes. I had a lot of sunflowers and zinnias. I can never think of that word. And I will have even more this year, because that attracts pollinators to your garden and will really help your plants to flourish and grow. I totally believe that I have such a high bee population for 2 reasons. One is I used to keep honeybees, so I think they're hanging around here somewhere still. Number 2, they know where to come and get a good pollen meal from my garden flowers. So I have a lot of blooming things in my garden for them to just enjoy. I will usually also let my mint kind of go to seed. That's a double-edged sword because it's quite invasive. But if it brings those pollinators to the garden, they will go from thing to thing to thing, and you will have a lot better yield. Now, I did have some like blossom rot or blossom failure, and that's simply because there was such a smorgasbord for them to choose from. At least that's my philosophy. All right, guys, I need to stir my fire again, and then we are going to talk about a book, and not necessarily you need to buy this book, but I will link it. And we're also going to talk about Clyde's Garden Planner in way more depth than I didn't do it justice on the first video. So I hope you'll stay tuned. All right, y'all. So this is Clyde's Garden Planner, and he was featured on OffGrid with Doug and Stacy's last live stream, and such a lovely man. So smart. And right now, you can purchase, it's $7, guys. It's inexpensive. I've had mine for years. I actually ordered a new one, and I'll tell you why. There's some additional things that have been added to it since I got mine. I'm just watching the chickens, sorry about that. So what you do, see the red line here? So I've lined that up with the first week in May. And it will tell you for most major vegetables. Let's just take onion sets. So it has FP for first planting. That is March 22nd. And they should be ready by the end of May and all through June. Peas, first planting March 29th. Spinach, first planting March 29th. Cabbage, April 5th. So this takes a lot of the guesswork, even though I put it out on the calendar. This will help you, especially if you're buying, what am I trying to say? Seedlings versus starting your own plants. Oh my word. It's not that early for words to be hard, right? It also has a fall side. So if you go to offgridwithdougandstacy.com, click on the 3 lines, or some people call it the hamburger menu, and drop down to shop, scroll down. If you purchase Clyde's Garden Planner, and guys, this is because I think it's beneficial, not because there's anything in it for me. And when it asks for a discount code, type in OffGrid, all one word. You will get an additional information packet about successful growing. So I thought that was really neat and something I wanted to share. Now we got it going. Now we're cooking with fire. So gardening books. Y'all, I have so many. And a lot of times a good place to start looking is a thrift store, a used bookstore. Goodwill's books are kind of pricey, but you can find some really good ones. I am so sorry, guys. Me and my hiccups. Although they are better. Let me see what year this was. 2010. This is called The Resilient Gardener, and it's food production and self-reliance in uncertain times. Guys, it's super heavy with information. There are some pictures, color pictures, but it's mostly reading. But let's say you're very concerned about your soil. Go read the chapter on soil. let's say you're really concerned about hours of sunlight that you have for your property. You can go read up on all of that and just gain those really nice bites of knowledge. I like to sit out here and smell like campfire and read gardening books. It's a little nippy yet, and it's quite overcast, guys, because it inspires me, and I always take something away that I think helps me to be a better gardener. Now, I know not everyone on this channel likes to garden. My gardening videos are probably overall the least popular of all of them. But I'm doing this in part, as I've said before, as sort of a memoir to my son, who plans to purchase his first home this summer, hopefully coming up here. So I'm really excited for him. He is so excited. And he has, as I've said before, 2 green thumbs. So he's been in an apartment for the last 7 years, I think. And he did that to save a lot of money, a very small apartment, etc., etc. But he's ready to branch out and have his own place. So that's exciting. But I also do it because there are some of you who think, well, I'm too old, or I'm not healthy enough. Guys, let me tell you something. And this isn't about poor me. I am not in the best shape, in the best health, or the youngest of any of y'all. I've had a rough last 6 months or so, and that happens from time to time. It's the nature of a chronic disease, right? So it's more important to me than ever, not only to produce healthy food that is organic, that I know what's in it, that I can afford, but also to get the exercise to keep my mind active. I'm gonna be 63 in about a little less than 3 weeks, you know? I'm no spring chicken anymore. And as long as these 2 legs will carry me and my back will hold me upright, might have to get like one of those hover rounds. No, honestly, I'm not in that shape yet. I want to do it because even though I had to retire early, my goal has never been to, you know, sit in my rocking chair and knit all day long and never go out and never see people and not have a full life. In a lot of ways, even though I'm not traveling and doing all the crazy things I've done in my life, not bad things, just kind of crazy things like bungee jumping and things like that. I just feel like my life is so full and so blessed. And that's because I've created something that I enjoy, and I challenge myself to have stretch goals. So I just encourage you, even if gardening this year looks like I'm gonna go to the big box store and I'm gonna buy me a tomato plant, I'm gonna put it in a pot, good for you. Good for you. You won't have to buy them at the store, and you can grow them organically. All right, let's go take a really quick tour, and let me share a couple things about where my garden is. My Lord, that is a smoky fire. And then I do want to take you around front and talk to you a little bit about the trees and some things that are upcoming. So all right, y'all, this is the front entrance to my garden. So one of the things that I've discovered, because the ground is quite wet, and this is that the gate is hanging up a little bit here. So it's making it a little harder to get like a wheelbarrow in and out. So I may have to grade the dirt down. That's an easy, get a shovel, easy thing to do. So you may think, why did they just dump leaves? Well, they aren't all just leaves. It's a lot of decomposed leaves. And of course, this is a top dressing, and there was a lot of dirt in here as well. So once this gets really stirred up and turned over, plus we still have all of March and all of April. So we have 2 more months for decomposition. Underneath here is some chicken manure, things like that. It will be in fine shape for planting. So this is my new 16-foot bed, and you may think, wow, that's kind of overfilled. It won't be. It compacts and compresses, and we've got lots and lots and lots of weeds. So I need to cut all of this back. I still have some stalks from zinnias and sunflowers, but as a whole, and they covered my garlic by accident, as a whole, it looks pretty good as far as the beds go until I start turning them over. It's a little early yet for me to do that. I want this to decompose a little more. Now my pathways, you'll see there's some weed barrier cloth that isn't covered in chips. And you can see I've got a lot of growth coming up through that. That does happen. So I'll be pulling what I can, putting down some wood chips, and I will probably expand the wood chips a little bit further. It will go between these two beds, maybe between these two beds, but I'm going to leave some grassy area because a quick zap with the weed eater, it'll be fine. Now look at that fire now. It's going gangbusters. One thing I didn't like, so not super crazy, and guys, it's out of the ground is why it's leaning. It can be straightened up. It has these clips. They're not hard to straighten. I'm thinking about putting it down here so that I can cover it and put my corn underneath there. But I have to tell you, in my opinion, my humble opinion, guys, this is the way to go. So get yourself a cattle panel, get yourself some T-post, get yourself some industrial locking zip ties, or you can wire it. There's clips, there's a lot of different things. This did not move through that crazy, crazy windstorm where this thing took on a mind of its own. So am I still going to use this? Yes. I might even consider taking it down to, like, taking the bottom piece off and just having it tall enough for the corn. So yeah. So that's where we are. I'm going to get the weed barrier cloth. Like, here is really bad because that's where the trellis was, and tack that down. And then I've got all my wood chips back there ready to go. So let me tell you a little bit about how I got the wood chips and how you can sign up for free as well. I realized I didn't share anything about Chip Drop. So if you go to chipdrop.com, put in your zip code, and request a free chip drop. What they do is they contract with, I guess you would say, tree cutting people who have a chipper who need a place to offload all of those chips. Now there's a few things to know. You have to take the whole truckload. That's why I have so many wood chips, right? Delivery is when delivery is. You can't predict it. They will not bring it back to the back. So I paid my landscaping guys to wheelbarrow it load by load from my driveway back here. They will send you an email and ask if you're still interested if 6 months has passed and there hasn't been any available chips in your area. I've had 2 drops. I think it is so worth the money. I used to use straw and Amazon cardboard, or just cardboard boxes. And let me tell you all, straw on cardboard is extraordinarily slippery. And even though there's many, many layers, because I did it for a number of the years, I didn't start using wood chips till last year. I think it was, maybe a year before. The weeds can still get through it. It does keep the weeds down. You know, technically I could have left grass in between all the beds. That is a lot of weed eating. My landscape guys aren't always real good about that. So I figure if I just leave a few big areas for them, they'll probably do a better job. Yes, girly girls. I feel like the Pied Piper sometimes. It's like no matter where I go, they follow me. A pooping all the way. So let's talk a little bit about the storms that came through Ohio. There were a number of tornadoes that touched down, some F1s and F2s. There are no tornadoes that touched down in my area, so I'm not trying to be overly dramatic. However, we did have 60-mile-an-hour winds. We had tons and tons of trees down. As you know, my neighbor's tree fell into my trees. And even though I had 55 trees removed last fall, let me take you out front and just show you what I will have to have done over the next 3 to 4 weeks is the estimate of when he can get to it. So not upset with my neighbor whatsoever. It was, you know, just something that happens in nature, and actually the electrical company are the ones that hacked my trees up so bad, but they kind of had to. All right, guys, let's go. It might be a little noisy with traffic, but let's hope not. All right, y'all, this is actually the neighbor's tree right here, and as you can see, it was dead, and it fell into this cluster of trees that are all mine. So DP&L unfortunately just took it out of the way of the wires, but these trees will not survive just to the trauma that they've had. I think this one might be okay. It actually is my tree as well, but here's the property line. Real sophisticated out here. The other thing that really needs to be done, whew, stepped in a hole. If you see this tree with the big V that goes out and over my house, that section of the tree here is going to be coming down. The tree is actually the neighbor's, but it is on my property, so the responsibility to pay for it is mine. So even though I have quite a nice open space, I'll show you a few of my snowdrops too while we're out here. You know, older trees are just problematic. So it's very pretty back here. And now I'm hoping these will actually bloom. Some daffodils, chicken manure. I think this is just beautiful. Look, guys, at all of the gorgeous snowdrops. There are some snow crocus. Keep going here. This is all my, oops, don't fall down, Kym. That's all my land. These are crocus. That's all snowdrops, and snowdrops, the white ones there and here. So they are just everywhere. And my land actually cuts through about a third of that is the neighbors. So it's just really lovely to look at in the spring. I kind of wish the fence wasn't there, but the fact of the matter is, it's there. Well, I hope today's video hasn't choked you out with all the smoke. I'm gonna have a cup of ginger turmeric tea. If y'all are thus inclined to do the research, turmeric is a great root to use for inflammation for me. And the ginger just makes it taste lovely. So I'm gonna sit out here sending smoke signals, send help for the garden. But I hope today's video has been helpful. Y'all, I don't have all the answers. I try to simplify it. I like the five or seven things type videos because I think it gives you bites of information to consider. If there's any specific questions, I'd be more than glad to answer. I'm not sure what we're going to get into a little later this week. Like I said, it's too early for any type of planting for a couple more weeks. Some of the frost hardy crops I can certainly do, but it's pretty early, so it may be more like April. I might do some onion sets, but that's not exciting. So we'll see if we can do some fun cooking or maybe a craft, something like that while we're waiting. Yeah, Marigold. Yes, girly girl. She likes the warmth. She's my least social hen, my Rhode Island Red. I also have a chicken coop, a portable coop to build. And end of April, 1st of May, I will have my 3 new ladies coming. Still working on some names, but I've come up with some cute ones. So it'll be nice and it'll be fun. So I plan to see you all on Thursday, Lord willing, and the trees don't fall. But at any rate, would you do me a big favor? Go ahead and smash that like button and drop me a comment on your way out. Any questions on gardening, number 1? Any major point I left out, number 2? And are you getting anxious for gardening season, number 3? All right, guys, until I see you again, Marigold says, be healthy, be well, be blessed, and take care.